So this project, we've essentially gone to the point where we've gone through the full development phase of cutting an ERD, getting feedback on it from a professional individual, then getting iteration over iteration, then finally designing something that called, I wouldn't call it professional, but it certainly does embody the uh, uh, SDLC cycle along with the DBLC cycle. Uh, the the entire course of the project for this part of the project in particular, we've defined what it meant to be part of the user interface itself. In fact, one of the biggest parts of what we're using right now, cloud computing, through AWS, ACM, essentially Amazon's combined ecosystem, along with some of the cloud computing services offered by domain and SSL and certificate authorities, were put together and really embodied, I think, what we've learned in this last part of the course. Essentially, what we've done here is we've taken this idea of allergen database and we've put it together in a way that I think has been targeted towards users in a very specific and meaningful way. For example, me and my partner Michelle, we went to great lengths in order to use different designs and satisfy the initial user feedback, along with designing systems that made it so it was simpler to, I wouldn't say train, but integrate users into our ecosystem. And this system is fully usable. Now, for the most part, for this project, it's been this last little stretch, it's been a lot of development cost, and that is why, well, literally development cost as monetary development cost, along with time and effort. And we've put in a decent effort into showing for you today right here. So sorry for the untimely.
All right, so this is our homepage, and this is specifically for, a user can just enter in their symptom and then they should get a result associated with that symptom. So for example, if we were to type in itch or itchy face, then you would get outputs. You get multiple different outputs, but one of them being like a face wash, et cetera, et cetera. If you also go over to the login page, this is where we try to make it so that only authorized users have access to this database. So username being admin, and then password being password123. You log in, and this is where you're actually able to perform create, read, update, and delete changes to the database. So if you click on write query, that is where the admin, and only the admin, will be able to write any sort of query that they would like. But if there is some sort of error where the query does not match something that is in the database, then there will be an error message. But if this is an actual legitimate query, then it will have an error. Then if it is an actual query, then it will result. It'll say that it was successful. However, if it was not, then it will have an error message.
Okay, so the other part of the query page, very specifically, is that it has some limited selection. So for example, say we selected medication name. Medication name, medication where medication name like %INE, right? Now, you'll get an actual answer back here. You'll get no results because there were no results. However, let's say you write a query that's super general. You say, I want all the rows from the massive cure table. And that results in this. Now, this information here is generally very, very hard to read. However, you'll be glad to know that inside our treatment information table, we have a far easier way to read this.
And so this is another page that we have. If you just navigate to it, the treatment information page. So let's say you want to search up a treatment, like let's say Claritin, for example. So you would type in Claritin, and this is where you could find information associated with Claritin. So you click search, and this is where the information should pop up. However, if you were to type in antihistamines as well too, then you get output related to everything about antihistamines that we have in the database.
Just to be clear, there are entries right here.
Yes.
Sort that little bug out, don't worry. Compared to our earlier parts of the project, we actually listened to feedback and we realized how strange it was, how sort of tightly packed we've put all the different types of essentially treatments. Essentially. Now, there was a consideration here where inside our year of design we had a treatment type, right, which we've generalized actually out to out of home, in home, and then like doctor needed. And we've also decided to aggregate the treatment types. Now, don't worry, we didn't stick them together even farther because we actually differentiated them in an important way through listing the medications that are relevant to each of them. For example, it'd be important for somebody to know that if they were taking Claritin D as opposed to Claritin, they're actually taking pseudoepiphrin, which is not the same thing as Claritin itself. Pseudoepiphrin is a digestant.
And so on this page, the forecast page, if you were to navigate to it, you would actually only input 2 parameters. So let's say you wanted to input season. So let's say you were to input spring, and then environment. You could say damp, for example. Then once you click search, you should get the allergen associated with these 2 parameters.
And also the idea of this page was between me and Michelle having the idea that the whole point of the website essentially was 2 factors. 1, how do you make it so somebody who's suffering from symptoms doesn't suffer any more symptoms? And 2, how do you help that person avoid those same in the future? This page was our answer to that solution. Was our answer to that problem. By putting in your environment, your locale, and the plants you're exposed to and the season you're in, you're able to see what you're at threat of. And there are other considerations as well, as for example, if you're putting in allergens alone, you can, if you're putting in allergens and seasons, you know what environments they're going to be, and you can then plan to go around them.
Another page that you can navigate to in this website is going to be the allergen information search. So essentially, you would enter in an allergen. So let's say I wanted to type in A and B space A space 1, for example. So if you were to type that in and you would click search, then that is where you would find even more information associated with this allergen. So if you were to type it in, yeah.
Actually, we've moved on to a different type of design. For example, MBA1 is actually included as for the pollens right here. As you'll see, you'll search it. Don't worry, we'll add functionality to it. But for now, we've given you the very easy way of saying if you are a connoisseur or a researcher, you could just look through it. For example, go through it here, but don't worry about that. That is easily taken care of with a distinct line. Don't worry about it. We have, say, beta V1, which is associated with many different environments and plants. And here's Acer P1, which is like MA1, associated with an extremely wide amount of plants. And there's also further other pollen forms here, though, as you can see, we've already scrolled past them. There are other forms, however. Let's say we go with mold. Not go dander, sorry. Get plants, we get animals, and this dander essentially is a different type of allergen. We've also expanded the scope and gone beyond the original part of the database design in order to encompass a larger user base and more of the type of people that would go on this website.
So that's all that we have for this website so far. We are planning to continue on with this website because we actually think that it is quite useful. Usually what happens in healthcare is that patients, not only do they not feel care sometimes, but at the end, no matter how many doctor appointments they go to, sometimes the problem is not solved. So this website is hopefully going to be a resource for these allergy sufferers, right? Because it provides them with a lot more information that a patient might get at a doctor's appointment, or even if they're traveling somewhere, as we discussed earlier. It's really important to see what type of components that you're interacting with, because allergies can be really painful and can really affect the quality of a person's life.
And also, allergies themselves are sort of ever present as a problem. And this is especially useful in mobile applications along with big data, essentially. And while this isn't a big data project by any point, it is certainly a topic that is related to. Imagine being able to track exactly where people feel their high severity allergy, the exact severity, medically phrased, of course, of their medical conditions, their symptoms, etc. This database, while not being a big database itself, is a sort of representation of what databases can be and will continue to be in the future. More useful applications, people who need them, faster and more affordable rates.